Hello, hello. How's everyone doing? I hope everyone's good and living their best life, right? I hope everyone's doing good, living their best life, and I appreciate you all for joining me. I appreciate you all. Thank you for joining me. Right now, there's a big mess in the Democratic Party, right? The big mess, not just in the Democratic Party, but there's a big mess in the Republican Party. Both parties are pretty much acting like they don't have no sense in their head, right? Both parties are acting like there's no sense in their head, and now we have to decide which side we want to be on, right? Which side we want to be on. Do we want to be on the side that's correct and on the right side of history, or do we want to be on the side of purity? Which side do we want to be on? That's the biggest question, and that's what I want people to understand, that you can be on either side. You could be on the good side, or you could be on the bad side of things, right? You could be on the side of morality, the side of rationality, the side of that's correct, and it's going to be remembered in history as being the side of reason, right? Or you could be on the side of lack of reason, the side that doesn't want to be flexible and doesn't want to allow others to be part of the process of democracy, right? And I can acknowledge that there's a lot of people that choose not to be involved in politics at all, right? We have a whole generation, people from the previous generation and people from this generation, that don't really want to be involved in politics. They feel a disconnection. They feel like they're disconnected from what's occurring in the world. They feel like no one speaks for them. And so in the end of the day, they know that things are not going to change no matter how hard they try, no matter how much they vote. So they just put their heads down and they just keep it moving, and they just do things one day at a time, and they don't even worry about politics, because many people are just pretty much trying to survive on a day-to-day basis, right? Most people are trying to survive on a day-to-day basis. They don't really know or care what's happening in the political arena. They just put their heads down and what they call it, keep it moving, right? Just put their heads down and just keep it moving and just work their jobs and try to keep their jobs and try to stay employed without any issues, right? But then there's a whole group of people that feel, I used to be part of that group, right? I used to be part of that group of people that felt that not getting involved in politics was the best way to not be shamed or not get in trouble. And so, but then what happens is that politics comes to you and directly jumps in your lap, and you have no choice, but you got to deal with the situations that you are provided with, right? And so then your whole mindset changes, and you decide you want to become involved because there's no other choice but to become involved. And a lot of people still are not involved in politics because they don't see the connection that that the political world has with them or with their everyday life, right? They don't understand, and they want that to stay like that, right? Low voter turnout, low involvement has benefited the rich. It has benefited the status quo, because things just keep staying the same over and over. And these populations that are affected by politics feel like they don't have to be moved by it. So it pretty much allows these institutions not to change, especially as I identify myself as an independent, right? An independent voter. I also identify myself as a Latino. As you can tell, you can hear my accent, and I see that as a strength because I speak two languages. I speak English and I also speak Spanish, and so I can see the differences in culture, the differences in understanding of how life works, right? And so then we have people like Marco Rubio that has skyrocketed to the top of politics, and people are saying that he might run for president. But he didn't do that well when he was running for many of his political positions, including this time around when he ran for president. He didn't do too well, right? He didn't do too well at all. He didn't do well at all. And he's leading the charge in this administration's Cuba policy. He's leading the charge in a lot of the inner circles of the Republican Party. He's a Cuban American, Marco Rubio, Latino, male, but he didn't grow up in Cuba, right? He has a different perspective because he never set foot in Cuba. He's American, and he looks at things differently, but he was raised by Cuban parents, and so he understands the culture, but he doesn't really understand everything that happens within the culture, right? We're a different generation. We're born and raised here, so our perspectives are different than our parents' perspective, and we're taught most of the time, having immigrant parents or parents that come from other places, we were taught to lay low and not get involved in politics, stay out of trouble, and try to keep the lowest profile possible, and that's the way we would succeed, right? And so let's watch a little bit of Marco Rubio. He was pretty much in Marco Rubio was being interviewed, and he was talking about he's been Donald Trump's mouthpiece recently. That's been his biggest after he bashed Donald Trump repeatedly. He bashed Trump repeatedly over and over during his campaign and spoke about how dangerous he was. Hello everyone, my name is Celso Garcia, and I'm streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram, and Substack. Thank you for joining me for my political analysis, live from New York City, live from my living room. We're going to talk about all the political moments and the political hits that are very important in my world and in your world, hopefully. Let's make it easy and simple politics, right? So Marco Rubio was one-on-one with George Stephanopoulos, which George Stephanopoulos is somebody that is not a friend of the Trump administration, because remember Trump sued him. ABC had to settle the lawsuit, so they capitulated to the Trump administration and settled the lawsuit because he interviewed Kamala Harris, and they're saying that he made some statements that were not true, right?
Thank you for joining us this morning. Let's talk about the president's comments overnight, talking about taking the oil.
So they jump right into it. And the first thing they jump into is let's put this in the big screen, right? And the first comment, they jump right into the controversy. No way to avoid it.
On Carg Island. How would he do this? Why would he do this? Won't it take ground troops?
Well, first of all, it's important to remember the objectives of this operation from the very beginning. We are destroying Iran's navy. We are destroying their ability to their missile launchers by a significant percentage. We're going to wipe out their defense industrial base,
which is a big contradiction from what Donald Trump said, right? It's a big contradiction from what Donald Trump said. Una contradicción. Donald Trump had said we already had destroyed the Navy. We already had wiped out the Navy. And now Marco Rubio is using more measured words.
meaning their ability to make new missiles and new drones in the future, because it poses a great threat to the region. This Iran that you're seeing now, this is Iran at its weakest point. Imagine them 2 years from now if they had thousands of more missiles, thousands of more missile launchers and factories to make even more. That was an unacceptable risk. It needed to be addressed, and President Trump is addressing it. Now, they are making threats about controlling the Hormuz Straits in perpetuity, creating a tolling system and the like. That's not going to be allowed to happen. And the president has a number of options available to him if he so chooses to prevent that from happening. Obviously, I'm not going to discuss what those options are, and we're not going to discuss military tactics. The Department of War would be in charge of those things. I'd refer you to them, but obviously they're not going to discuss it with you either. But there is a way forward here to achieve our objectives. We are going to achieve our objectives in a matter of weeks, not months.
Well, but let's talk about taking the oil, because the president laid out that objective last night. And taking the oil will take ground troops, won't it?
Well, again, the Iranians are threatening that they're going to set up some permanent system in the Straits of Hormuz where they get to decide who goes through international water.
So now they're saying it's an international issue that they need to address. And so I love to play Marco Rubio's greatest hits, right? Whenever he's here speaking well of Donald Trump, speaking well of everything he does, I love to play his greatest hits, right? Should I play his greatest hits? Should I do it? Let me see if I should. I should do it, right? Let's see. So this is the contradiction of how they work, right?
Rent labor to do it.
Let's play his greatest hits, right? Marco Rubio's greatest hits. How he spoke about Trump in the debate.
The second. If he builds the wall the way he built Trump Towers, he'll be using illegal immigrant labor to do it. The
Such a cute soundbite.
But no, it's not a soundbite. It's a fact.
Yeah,
Again, go online and Google it. Donald Trump, Polish workers. You'll see it. The second thing about the trade war, I don't understand, because your ties and the clothes you make is made in Mexico and in China. So you're going to be starting a trade war against your own ties and your own suits. All right.
You know what?
Why don't
Because
you
they
make them in
devalue
America?
their currencies.
No.
They devalue their currencies.
Well, then make them in
that
America.
Makes it impossible. Well, you don't know anything about business. You lose
Well,
on
make them in
everything you do.
America.
You
And
don't
in
know anything
Russia.
about it because you're a lousy
Well, I don't know
businessman.
anything about bankrupting four companies.
No,
You
I
bankrupted
know.
four
You know what?
companies.
You know what?
I don't know anything about
You know what?
starting a
That's
university.
called-
That was a fake university.
First of all,
a fake university.
That's called.
There are people
let
that
me just
borrow
tell you, that's-
$36,000 to go to
Mr.
Trump University, and they're suing him now. $36,000
And
to go to a university.
by the way,
That's a fake school.
And by the way,
And you know what they got? They got to take a
I've won
picture with
most
a
of the
cardboard
lawsuit.
cutout of Donald Trump.
And by the way,
that's what they
I've
got for
won
the
most of the
$36,000.
I want to move
and
on.
they actually did a very good job. But
Mr.
I've
Trump.
won most of the lawsuit.
Senator, I want to
Most
bring in
of the lawsuit.
I want to
That
bring
means
in
they
my
lost
colleague
part of the
Maria
lawsuit.
Excuse me,
Celeste.
hey, Wolf, let me ask you, am I allowed to respond to this
You're
guy?
allowed- you've been
Okay,
responding.
well, no, I haven't. I really haven't.
He's
Go
talking
ahead.
the whole
I
thing.
haven't. Here's the guy that buys a house for $179,000. He sells it to a lobbyist who's probably here for $380,000, and then legislation is passed. You tell me about this guy. This is what we're going to have
Here's
as
the guy that
president?
inherited $200 million. If he hadn't inherited $200 million, you know where Donald Trump would be right now? Selling watches in Manhattan. That's where
That
he would
is
be.
so wrong. We'll work on that. I took $1 million and I turned it into $10 billion. I borrowed $1
Then
million.
release the tax.
So this is the guy that we're trusting to dictate our foreign policy and to pretty much say how we should run our government. And I don't know how they get along in the room, but money does wonders, right? Once we grease those wheels, like they say, things change, right? Now all of a sudden,
So we can see how
I
much money he
borrowed
makes.
$1 million.
two grifters attacking each other about who's the bigger grifter, right?
I
he
turned it
doesn't make
into
that much
$10
money.
billion, more than $10
As soon
billion.
as I step foot into the Oval Office.
I have to say, he lied this time. He lied. 100%. 100%.
You lied about the Polish
Oh,
workers.
yeah.
You lied to the
30
students of
38
Trump
years ago.
University.
38 years ago.
Oh, he lied 38 years ago. All right, I guess there's a statute of limitation on lies. Here's what you didn't hear in that answer, and this is important, guys. This is an important thing. What is your plan? I understand the lines around the state, whatever that means. This is not a game where you draw maps
And you
around.
don't know what it
What
means.
is your plan?
That's the problem. You
What is
don't
your
know.
plan on health care? You don't have a
biggest problem.
plan.
The biggest
Well, what is
problem
it?
he
Yeah, I'll
doesn't
give him
know.
1 minute of
The
my
biggest
time to tell me
problem
his
he's
plan.
got is he
What's his
doesn't know.
plan?
You know, I watched him melt down 2 weeks ago with Chris Christie. I got to tell you, the biggest problem he's got is he really doesn't know about the lines. The biggest thing we've got, and the reason we have no competition, is because we have lines around the state, and you have
I know,
essentially
we already mentioned that as part of my
monopolies in the
plan.
state.
I know what that is.
But
what else is...
So it's pretty much two grifters arguing about who is the smallest grifter, who's the biggest grifter, who attacks who, and that's the biggest issue in this situation. Who is the biggest grifter? Who's the smallest grifter? Right? Pretty much that's what this is all about.
part of your
You know
plan.
much.
So your only thing is to get rid of the lines around the states. What else is part of your
What
health
the
care plan?
lines around the states
That's
mean,
your only
and it was
plan.
almost done. No. You know
All
what
right,
that does?
I'll
That
give him
brings
time
in.
to mind. He can
Excuse
tell
me.
us his plan.
Excuse me. That
What's your
brings
plan?
in competition. When you get rid of the lines, it brings in competition. So instead of having one insurance company taking care of New York or Texas, you'll have many. They'll compete, and it'll be a beautiful thing.
Right. And so that's the only part.
And we're still waiting, right? We're still waiting for that plan, the Obamacare plan, to replace Obamacare, which is just take away people's health care. That's it. Straight up take away people's health care. That's the master plan, right?
The plan, just the lines, the interstate
Well, no,
competition.
the nice part about the plan, you'll have many different plans. You'll have competition. You'll have so many different plans.
But now he's repeating himself.
No, I'm not repeating. No. I don't repeat myself.
You don't repeat yourself.
Here's the guy who repeats himself.
You repeat yourself every day.
I watched it. Talking about repeating repeating. I watched him repeat himself 5 times 4 weeks ago. And
I saw
want to
you
tell
repeat yourself 5
it
times
was a
5
meltdown.
seconds ago.
I watched him melt down on the stage like I've never seen anybody. I thought he came out of...
And all of a sudden, all those criticisms, all those attacks disappeared with the right amount of money, right? So it just shows that one grifter to
Swimming
another.
pool.
I said, well,
Let's talk
I see him
about your
repeat himself
plan.
every night. It says 5 things. Everyone's dumb.
Senator
He's going to
Rubio.
make America great
Senator
again. We're going to
Rubio.
win, win, win.
Senator
He's
Rubio,
winning in the
please.
polls. And
Please
the
stop.
lines around the state. Every night. Same thing.
Senator Rubio. Senator Rubio, you will have time to respond. If you could just let Mr. Trump respond to what
Yeah,
you
he's
just
gonna give us
posed
his
to
plan
him.
now, right?
If you could talk a little bit more about your plan. I know you talked about
We're
the
going to have
interstate.
many different plans
Can you
because there's
give us
going to be
specific?
competition.
Try it again.
There's going to be competition.
Does this sound like Iran? We have many plans. We're gonna end it. We're gonna start it. We're gonna leave. We're gonna stay. It's
There is going to
contradictions.
be competition among all of the states and the insurance companies. They're going to have many, many different plans.
Is there anything else you would like to add to that?
No,
part of your
there's
plan?
nothing to add. What's to add?
Wow. Is that crazy enough for you? And so we go back to the clip and how he changed drastically, right? How he changed drastically from then to now, and his changes to being a defender of Trump.
That will never be allowed to happen. By the way, the rest of the world should take note of that. They have more at stake there than we do. We get very little of our energy in this country coming through the Straits of Hormuz. The rest of the world gets a lot more. That said, the president has several options at his disposal, and the Department of War is preparing optionality for the president.
Always, right? That's what they argue, right? So he changed his tune.
For this and various other contingencies that might arise. That's what always needs to happen in situations like this. But what I want the American people and the people watching this broadcast to know is that fundamentally, what this is about is the destruction of their Air Force, which has been largely achieved, the destruction of their Navy, which has been largely achieved, the destruction of their factories that they make all these weapons with, which is we're well on our way to achieving, and a substantial reduction in the number of missile launches that they have so that they cannot continue to threaten their neighbors in the future. All of those objectives are being met on or ahead of schedule, and should be able to achieve in a matter of weeks.
As you're speaking, though, the president is expanding the objectives. Just a couple minutes ago, he put out a post on Truth Social saying that we're in discussions now with a new and more reasonable regime in Iran, but he also added that if those discussions don't...
So, big difference, right? From when he was campaigning, when he was speaking the truth. Now he became a mouthpiece for Donald Trump and for the Republican Party, right? So they will never stop at any limit to what they do. And that's what gets me also upset with the Democrats, right? Because the Democrats on Iran, they haven't changed their stances, right? They haven't challenged the status quo, right? They just been going along with what's happening, right? They just been going along with what's happening and not really fighting the issues, right? Not fighting the issues. Right? They haven't been pushing back. That's why the Democrats need to change their whole stance. Right?
Ask you about this issue of the time.
So let's listen to Ryan Grimm from Dropsite News. Interviewing Jeremy Scahill. Let's listen to the Democrats what they're doing, that they're not challenging the status quo, and they're quietly supporting behind the scenes. They're supporting the war with Iran. Right behind the scenes, they're supporting it. They're not being resistance.
Timing of the non-war powers resolution. You know, you and I broke this story the other day about how Chuck Schumer and other Democrats going back to the June war have sort of cynically seen opportunity in this situation. On the one hand, many Democrats support a regime change war against Iran. They may not want to say it out loud, but their careers and what they say in private, and we've heard and we've reported on, it's clear that there are some powerful Democrats that are perfectly aligned with this policy. And then there's also a line of thinking by some of those people,
Democrats
but also
need to change.
maybe Democrats that are not so excited about an Iran war, but they see political opportunity in the idea that.
So they're quiet behind the scenes. They're quiet. The Democrats are just quiet. Publicly, they say they don't support the Iran war, but behind the scenes, they do support it. That's why they haven't really been pushing the Iran war resolution to rein it in. And so they haven't really challenged the Republicans on this issue, on the Iran issue. And they just been going along with whatever the Republicans want.
If Trump does this and it goes wrong, that it's because 70% of the American people right now, by recent polls, maybe even higher than that, are against this, that this is going to benefit them in the midterms or in the long term politically. And it's pretty clear that Hakeem Jeffries and other Democrats made sure this war powers resolution didn't go forward. And they were part of the gang of 8 being briefed by Marco Rubio. It's pretty clear they knew this was coming down the pipeline. They schedule, the vote for after this strike is going to happen. They're deeply complicit in this situation, and they're also cynically, and I think scandalously, cheering this on to an extent.
Yes, and before we wrap the stream, I'll also add some new reporting that we'll be publishing, very soon over at DropSite regarding the strike on the girls' school in southern Israel, where it appears more than 85.
Iran, not Israel.
If I say southern Israel, southern Iran, where more than 85 people at this school. There were 170 students or so in there, and we'll get to that in a moment. But I think it's extremely important context for understanding the depth of the cynicism of this strategy, because we're not talking about just kind of meaning.
So the Democrats decided to stay quiet, not resist, so they could have it both ways, right? So if the war goes badly, they could claim that they were never with the war. If the war goes well, then they could say, hey, we didn't stop the war. We knew this was going to change the regime, so that's why we didn't resist. So they're playing both cards. They're playing both their hands to support themselves.
This horse race chatter here to pick up a couple extra seats in the midterms. We're talking about 9 and 10-year-old little girls getting ripped apart within moments of arriving at school, who have nothing to do with anything.
Which is troubling for most people.
Part of the reporting that we did was around this moment that happened in June, ahead of the last assault on Iran, where Trump said he's going to attack Iran, and then he made some gestures towards, maybe we'll have a diplomatic opening, as he does. Like that's his pattern. When he did that, Chuck Schumer put out a video mocking Trump as Taco Trump. Trump always chickens out. Making fun of Trump for moving from his belligerence, back toward lying about a diplomatic resolution. And a group of more than 24 kind of anti-war organizations in Washington, D.C. sent Schumer a letter that said, what are you doing? Like, why are you trying to goad Trump into war? Like, there's no political benefit worth the cost in human lives that will come from
Exactly.
voting him into this war. You know, don't McFly this situation. And it led to a call then between one of the leaders of one of these organizations and somebody in the top foreign policy advisor in Schumer's office. The advisor said, listen, what you need to understand is that in the Democratic caucus among the senators here, there's actually strong, quiet support for U.S. attacks on Iran. But we also understand that doing so would be deep
and strong, quiet support, because a lot of these politicians get a lot of money from AIPAC, from the Israel lobby, from J Street, from all these powerful lobbyist organizations that are pro-Israel. So they're definitely supporting it, because the majority of their campaigns and the majority of the money they receive is from pro-Israel PACs and pro-Israel lobbyists. So they typically are trying to be moral, but be careful not to get anyone upset that donates money, their donors, right? So they want to show that they're opposition, but they don't really want to show that they're opposing to not upset the donors, but they don't want to upset their base either, right? So they're holding that middle line, which is not good, because they have always caused division within the party by trying to be centrist, by trying to be moderate, by trying to be the middle people. But at the same time, they're not willing to condemn the genocide in Gaza. They're not willing to condemn all the things that are happening in the Middle East. But they do take a lot of money. They do take a lot of money from the Israeli lobby. So they don't want to anger those donors, because those donors are pretty much their main way of fundraising and having money in the bank, right? That's the main thing. They don't want to anger those voters, and therefore they're playing both sides. And that's why I say right now that the Democrats need to change their point of view and point of views ASAP, as soon as possible. They need to change their point of view, because if not, the midterms may be a disaster for the Democrats. It may be a disaster for the Democrats, because the way they're playing this game is a dangerous game to play, because they're not going to draw in any MAGA supporters. They're not going to draw in Republicans. Most Republicans will not vote Democrat, no matter what. They'd rather stay home than vote Democrat. Even if they don't like Donald Trump, they will not vote Democrat, unless they have a serious conversion, which takes time, takes years, and doesn't really happen to people. Once they have their views, they have their views, and they pretty much follow the algorithm of their views, right? They follow the views that they feel that align with them, and they usually don't really change that much throughout their life, right?
politically unpopular.
So not many people could be persuaded, or most people cannot change they don't really change that much their perspective from one point of view to another immediately, right? It takes time, it takes years, and they may never change, right? They may never change their perspective. Thank you for hitting the follow button, the share button. Hit the Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram, and Substack, and TikTok. Hit the like button, hit the share button. Support the channel. I appreciate you all for joining me, and discussing and analyzing the nonsense that we see from both the Republican and Democrats. We're seeing too much nonsense going on.
Nobody wants a new war in the Middle East. They like the policy. They would like to see the regime change in Iran, but they don't want to be the ones with their fingerprints on it. They would rather that Trump carries it out, and as a bonus, they believe that it will split the MAGA coalition, that it would be terrible politics for Trump to launch a war on Iran. So it's this political win-win for Democrats. It hurts Trump
Playing
among his
both
base,
sides.
it hurts Trump among all voters.
And he's been wrong, right? He's been wrong because even though traditional Republicans might not like Trump and might not like his point of view, right now it's pretty much MAGA, right? MAGA, and MAGA is like, is a different beast, right? They believe that Donald Trump knows best, that he has a master plan, that eventually things will work out. Eventually the economy will get back on its feet. Eventually the war will end, and everything that Donald Trump does, he has a master plan. He's a mathematician. He's a magician. He's a wordsmith. He's a person that will be able to fix it. Then it will be what they will want, right? Thank you. So let's keep listening to Ryan Grimm from Dropsite News.
Independents too are deeply opposed to a unilateral or bilateral attack on Iran, but also their benefactors and they themselves support the policy. So it's perfect for them. Now, the foreign policy aide added, Schumer doesn't believe that. It's not. Of course, it's not. Schumer would never be so cynical. Schumer opposes war, but this is the this is the posture that he's dealing with among so many Senate Democrats. So that's something you need to understand as he's kind of navigating this.
I don't know. I have a feeling like Schumer is not that good of a person, right? I don't really trust Schumer's perspective, right? I don't really trust Schumer's perspective that much, right? He will do anything and everything that the Democrats tell him to do, right? Schumer is a party leader, but he's also takes a lot of money from the Israeli lobby, right? A lot of money. So he won't say anything against the Israeli government or a war that's supported by both Israel and his mega donors, right? His mega donors and the ones that finance his campaigns and also finance a lot of the DNC's campaigns and a lot of the Democratic campaigns. So they will not resist against such a, they will not resist this, right? So in that instance, I don't agree with Ryan Grimm.
This political situation. So so they were then briefed. Ro Khanna, Democrat of California, Thomas Massey of Kentucky, Republican, put forward this War Powers resolution. The Gang of Eight, which includes Jeffries and Schumer, were briefed by the intelligence community and Rubio about the plans. They come out of this briefing signaling that they've been told effectively that war is coming, and they do nothing to advance the vote on the War Powers resolution. They finally, under pressure, said, "Okay, we'll do it next week." You and I see, like, the whole world.
And guess what? Congress is in recess right now, and it's week 5, so they're gonna be in recess for 2 more weeks. So we'll be 7 weeks at war with Iran. 7 weeks in war, right? So that means that they just gave Donald Trump another pass to rein in what's happening in Iran, or have to explain what's happening in Iran. They just went on recess for 2 weeks. They'll be back, and it'll be almost June. And so by them not resisting shows that the Democratic Party is also in support of whatever Donald Trump is doing, right? They show supporting by staying quiet, by not resisting, by not arguing with the Republicans, or not publicly saying they shouldn't be on recess.
Knew this was coming this weekend. They certainly must have known. And so now it'll still come up for a vote. And look, depending on what happens between now and then, there's a good chance it loses. That's the other thing. Like, support for war in Washington is always pretty strong. But and just from a cynical political perspective, the actual politics would be to put Republicans on the record in support of this war. Democrats oppose it, and go back and align yourself with those exact cynical politics that Schumer's aide was outlining in June. But because the pro-Israel lobby here in Washington would look askance at a vote against this war, they would actually sacrifice that extra political benefit for themselves to do that favor for the pro-Israel lobby. So, because now you're going to have some Democrats who are going to be pressured. Voters want them to oppose this war.
But that's why they're in recess. That's why they delayed the vote. So therefore, they will have to ignore the voters and say, hey, we're in recess. I know you're calling me. I know you're in opposition, but we're not even in Congress. We're back in our districts because we want to listen to the voters. And then they had Lindsey Graham already in. We already had Lindsey Graham already in Disney World, right?
Donors want them to support it. And so that's why you see all of these statements coming out of Jeffries and others that aren't even yet condemning the attack. They're saying, like, he needs to explain himself. Iran should not have a nuclear program, but Trump is recklessly putting. They all know Trump is recklessly putting American troops' lives at risk, and that's because they understand that Americans could die in this, which would be a massive political benefit to Democrats and a cost to Trump, and to not do everything in your power to stop that, to me, reflects an extraordinary level of cynicism that even beyond.
So there's like 13 have already died. There's more than 400 injured, many seriously. We don't really know because the numbers haven't been released. The press was kicked out of the Pentagon, and Donald Trump cracked down on any leaks or anyone in the administration he fired that was accused of having leaks or providing information to the press. So Americans are in the dark, and Democrats are not demanding those answers publicly.
We're typically used to here in Washington, and nothing tells that story more than what happened to these girls at the elementary school this morning.
So this was after the elementary school bombing, right? And I'm saying that they are cynical. They can be harmful to the American people. Both Republicans and Democrats can be a serious harm and seriously dangerous to the American people, right? That's just the way it works, right? Right? That's just the way it works. And even if you don't want to admit it, and then today, Marco Rubio now is saying, "Hey, don't you guys understand? Don't you all understand that the Republican Party is the party of workers, not the Democrats? The Democrats are hypocrites. The Democrats don't have to agree with us, but we're the party of the worker." So the Democrats have always claimed to be the party of the working class, the party of the working people.
It used to be conventional wisdom that Republicans are the party of the rich and Democrats are the party of the poor and working class. I'm not sure that was ever the case, but it sure as heck isn't the case now. Today, the Republican Party is the party of truck drivers and steel workers and cops and firefighters and waiters and waitresses and the men and women with calluses on their hands who go to work every day and provide for their families. And the Democrat Party is the party of rich coastal elites, effete leftists, sipping soy lattes with their pinkies in the air.
So now the Republican Party is trying to rebrand itself as the new Democratic Party, right? So the Republicans know that a populist message, a message of we represent the people, we're going to help the people, give us time, and we're going to bring the prices down. Give us time, even though the gas prices are going down. According to Republicans, it is. And according to Donald Trump, the gas prices are already going down. But if you give them time, the gas prices will totally go down, all the way down, and they'll go even lower than they ever been before. Even though nothing goes down, right? Nothing goes down at all, right? And the Democrats are pretty much counting on a backlash from voters for the budget cuts that Republicans put in the big beautiful bill. They're counting on health care cuts as a way to run in the midterms. So the Democratic Party is focusing on the midterms, focusing on the election in November. But it might be too late. They probably alienated so many people that now the Republican Party is now rebranding itself as the party of workers, the party of the middle class, the party of regular people. So they're adopting Bernie Sanders' message while the Democrats refuse to accept this message. Refuse to allow this message within the party. The Democrats push people like Hassan Piker out the left flank of the party. They push them out in hopes that they will be able to get CPAC people, the conservative part of the Democratic Party, the centrists, to join the Democrats. But the divisions are so great in politics, they're not acknowledging the divisions between Democrats and Republicans. They're not. And this is going to backfire terribly for Democrats, right? And Republicans are adopting the Bernie Sanders style message of what Marco Rubio just said. Now I want to play it one more time so you can hear it loud and clear and understand that this is the message that Democrats should be out there speaking on.
It used to be conventional wisdom that Republicans are the party of the rich and Democrats are the party of the poor and working class. I'm not sure that was ever the case, but it sure as heck isn't the case now. Today, the Republican Party is the party of truck drivers and steel workers and cops and firefighters and waiters and waitresses and the men and women with calluses on their hands who go to work every day and provide for their families. And the Democrat Party is the party of rich coastal elites, effete leftists.
This is why they're raising your gas prices, raising the diesel prices for the truck driver that has to pay for his own fuel and get reimbursed, or is being destroyed. Now all of a sudden they claim that they're helping the regular poor people. Right? See the difference between the two? See the difference? This is the message that the Democrats should be adopting. The only person I hear adopting this message is Bernie Sanders, right? So right now, according to The Hill, which is a right publication, do the math, Trump hits critical timeline marker as Iran wages on. The U.S.-Israeli war hit 1 month today, Monday, marking a critical mile marker for the Trump administration amid pressure to wrap the operation. President Trump and his deputies initially suggested the conflict would last 4 to 6 weeks following the initial strikes on the country late last month. However, despite saying the U.S. has met its objectives in the war, the administration has provided vague answers when asked about the war's timeline as it hit the 30-day mark. The President, Commander-in-Chief, and the Pentagon has always stated 4 to 6 weeks estimated timeline for Operation Epic Fury. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt told reporters at Monday's White House press briefing when asked about the war's timeline, right? We're on day 30th, right? That's what she said. Let me see if I can highlight this. Let me see if I can play this.
Operation Epic Fury is moving ahead successfully and according to plan. With each passing day, the United States military is increasing its advantage over the terrorist Iranian regime. More than 11,000 enemy targets have been struck to date, each strike further tripling the regime's offensive and defensive capabilities and creating more leverage for the United States and our allies. Compared to the start of the operation, Iran's ballistic missile and drone attacks are down by roughly 90%. The United States is also decimating the Iranian regime's navy. We have destroyed more than 150 of their naval vessels so far, including 92% of their largest vessels. The Iranian Navy has no vessels operating in major regional waterways and no ability to project naval power, which is why they've been assessed as combat ineffective. Our military continues to obliterate Iran's defense industrial base, with nearly 70% of their missile, drone, and naval production facilities and shipyards damaged or destroyed thus far, significantly reducing their ability to pose.
So, which one is it, everyone? Are they all on the same page? One says we reduce it significantly. One says 60%. The other one says 70%. The other one says 50%. The president says 0%. We destroyed all their capabilities, and they have a smaller sliver of it. And so the messaging is off. The messaging is definitely off. Everyone is sending mixed signals, different messages, and it's a little bizarre, right? But remember, they've been told not to cover this, and it's a two-sided, three-sided thing. Democrats and Republicans are working together to send this message to the American people, right?
In the region. U.S. and Israeli joint forces control the skies and have asserted air dominance over Iran, completing more than 11,000 successful combat flights thus far. The trend remains clear. The United States is conducting more intense, targeted strikes with devastating combat power with each passing day to destroy the threat posed by the Iranian terrorist regime, as President Trump sought out to do a month ago. It's no surprise that we are seeing the remaining elements of the regime become increasingly eager to end the destruction and come to the negotiating table while they still can. Despite all of the public posturing you hear from the regime and false reporting, talks are continuing and going well. What is said publicly is of course much different than what's being communicated to us privately. As a result, President Trump issued a 10-day pause to postpone planned strikes on Iranian power plants and energy infrastructure. This remains a truly once-in-a-generation opportunity for the regime to make a good deal with the United States, permanently abandon their nuclear ambitions, and stop acting as the world's leading state sponsor of terrorism. If the Iranians reject this golden opportunity, the greatest military in the history of the world continues to stand by to provide President Trump with every option available to ensure this regime continues to pay a grave price. One way or another, Iran will no longer have...
Never have I ever seen her ever read statements, prepare statements to stay on message. Obviously, she's been lambasted for saying contradictory things and not agreeing with what Trump says and not following the script, right? Not following the script that she's been told to follow. And so they definitely gave her the talking points. And now this week, finally, after 1 month, they all kind of are close to using the same talking points, because they realize that them using totally different information and providing totally different information was having them they were giving huge sound clips. And I'll play the Democratic side.
Incredible ability to threaten the United States or our allies, which is of course the overall objective and mission the president set out when he launched Operation Epic Fury. Unfortunately, even as President Trump is working hard every single day to protect the United States from foreign enemies, Democrats on Capitol Hill have failed to do the same here at home by keeping the Department of Homeland Security unfunded.
And so now they claim that they had to throw in the Department of Homeland Security not being funded, right? Definitely. And so let me this is crazy, right? Because everyone has a different point of view, different perspective on what it should be like, right? So I don't know if Ron Snyder is being funny or he's actually trying to be political, right? I don't know if he's trying to be funny or he's being political. So he said, for the people who did not read my entire post and are just responding to the headlines, you are missing the point. A military where every segment of society represented will make the deployment of troops. Right? Let me read it. This is Rod Snyder's response, right? Rod Snyder's response on X. A military where every segment of society for the people who did not read my entire post and are just responding to the headlines, you are missing the point. A military where every segment of society represented will make the deployment of troops and foreign wars less likely, as there will be more accountability at the highest level of power. Right now, the all-volunteer force means the sons and daughters of politicians, billionaires, Hollywood elites, and the ruling class are almost never the ones in uniform. That makes it far too easy for elected officials to vote for endless foreign adventures. They suffer no personal costs. When every family, rich or poor, red or blue, from every race, creed, and zip code, has skin in the game, things change dramatically. Congress would think long and hard before sending American troops into another faraway war that isn't vital to our national survival. No more cavalier decisions, no more other people's kids dying while their own kids stay safe at Ivy League schools or in Beverly Hills. That's not pro-war, that's anti-reckless war. It's the same reason universal service in places like Israel and Switzerland hasn't turned them into warmongers. It forces leaders to feel the real human cost before they pull the trigger. Read the whole post. The goal is unity, strength, and responsibility, not endless conflict. We want a military that truly reflects America, so America stops treating its military like disposable chess pieces. God bless the United States of America. However, him including Israel, Israel is part of this war with Iran, so you can't say that they're not part of the war, right? And this was his original post that caused a lot of controversy. Rob Snyder said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. John F. Kennedy. We must once again recommit ourselves to one nation under God, indivisible. Therefore, we must restore the military draft for our nation's young people. Each and every American at 18 years of age must serve 2 years of military service. They can also choose to serve part of that time overseas or in a country in a volunteer capacity. Being a citizen of the United States to give us unparalleled freedoms and opportunities that are the envy of the world. However, these freedoms that we cherish do not come without a cost. By protecting and preserving these freedoms, young people, regardless of race, creed, or religion, will be united in service to their country and just as importantly to each other. Many nations around the world require their young citizens to serve their country. Until recently, our nation did as well. This will serve many purposes in our society. We will have all of our young men and women put into a rigorous physical training course that they could use for the rest of their lives. We will always have a standing army ready at all times, including for domestic problems like natural disasters. Unlike in today's universities, our young people will learn how truly great their country is, how unique and incredible are the freedoms that this nation bestows upon them. Service is a solemn reminder of the men and women before them who paid the last full measure of devotion so that we may enjoy these freedoms. Also, very importantly, we will have in service every segment of our society represented so that our elected officials would be more hesitant and not cavalier about sending their own sons and daughters off to a faraway war unless it was truly our nation's interest. The discussion and implementation must begin, right? To the young people in America, this is your country and your future. We will leave this great and free nation in your good hands for your children and for your children's children. So, I mean, I'm a pacifist too. I should respond to him later. Let me not respond to him now, right? So this was Rob Snyder. He's getting a lot of backlash for this. He's getting attacked for his perspective. And I believe in the First Amendment. I believe that everyone should be allowed to speak their mind and say things the way they are. But like we always know, and we always know, he's going to get backlash, right? He might be at risk of being canceled. He might be at risk of, possibly people not wanting to hear what he has to say. He might be not have movies in his favor. So, I mean, what do you think, everyone? Right? He might not have movies. They might not want to put him on the stage. Right? And so that's why the Democrats are weak. They're not opposing the war in Iran. Right? They're not opposing the war in Iran. And all right. So I wanted to share this this tweet about the Pastor Ben shared. It says a lot that the most coordinated online. Let me share this. I read this and I found this 100% true. It says a lot that the most coordinated online political action we've seen from Democrats since Donald Trump's re-election has been to go after Hassan Piker and his left-leaning media, but not go after a single policy of Trump's. Really, ask yourself, when have you seen Democrats be this coordinated, right? When have you seen the Democrats be this coordinated in the time that Trump has been in office, in the time they were opposing the Republicans? Have you ever seen them be this coordinated against one person? That's why they keep attacking Hassan Piker. And I made a video about it, right? About that they really feel hurt that they can't control the narrative. They're losing support on social media. It's just ridiculous, right? In my book, it's just ridiculous the way people are thinking now. It's just something that is bizarre to me, right? Okay. So what CNN did was that instead Jake Tapper hosted a CNN panel with Peter Hamby and Jonah Platt discussing accusations of anti-Semitism against streamer Hassan Piker and his influence in Democratic politics. Dick Semi drew viewer backlash for being a biased hit job, particularly on the same day Israel enacted a law authorizing the death penalty for Palestinian detainees. Critics highlighted the panel's focus on Piker and made claims of over 9,000 to 10,000 Palestinian detainees affected by the legislation. So, we always have to consider the fact that every time a missile is launched, every time there's action, that means that our schools are not being funded. That means that our healthcare is not being funded. As much as if it does not matter if you're a Republican, if you're a Democrat, there's limited dollars chasing unlimited need, right? There's always need for programs. There's always need for after-school programs. There's always need for school buildings. There's always need for housing, right? We have a large segment or large amounts of people that are unhoused, right? There's large swaths of our population that are unhoused, that don't have homes, and we still don't really care what is happening, right? Right? So we gotta always understand and keep our eyes on the prize, what is important and what will get us to where we need to go, right? And so now a lot of people are saying Donald Trump is unpredictable. Trump again warned Iran to open the Strait of Hormuz. And why don't, it's just like they won't speak out against the Iran war. They won't speak out against the Gaza, what's happening with Gaza. They won't speak out against any of these major issues. Just like it took them a very long time to even acknowledge that there was an Epstein list and that there was Epstein files. And guess what? We still don't have the Epstein list. There's still more than 1 million files missing that we have not seen, right? We have not seen. There's millions of files still not seen, and the Democrats are not pushing. The Republicans are not pushing. They went to recess for 2 weeks. And why they went to recess? They don't really care. They know that a lot of their mega donors and rich are in those files. The owners of industry are in those files. The capitalists, the people that own our society, are in those files. So there's no rush to release them because it hurts Democrats as much as it hurts Republicans. The same thing with war. They feel as if it's only going to hurt the Republicans, but it's also going to hurt the Democrats because people like Hassan Piker that have a huge platform are calling them out. And they can no longer control the script. They could have CNN do hit jobs, but CNN and all these news outlets have lost a lot of viewers and a lot of people that support them. They keep losing support. Just like the Democrats have been losing Democratic voters, right? There's a lot of people joining third parties. There's a lot of people joining not only third parties, but they also registering as independents in the states that you could, because in New York you cannot register as an independent, right? You can only register as a Republican, as a Democrat, or part of the Working Families Party, or conservative party line, right? But there's no there's really no line for independence, right? They got rid of that. It used to be the case that you could register as an independent, but they were worried about that, and they got rid of it because they were scared of socialists and communists being able to run and challenge the status quo. So they got rid of it. To not make it harder for the average person to run a campaign. And that's what Citizens United has done. It has made it harder for just an average person to be able to run a campaign and challenge these politicians. That's why Congress is an elite institution. Elites control these institutions, the rich, the super wealthy. There's very few people that have low, net worth that are able to challenge the status quo, right?
So, as you may have heard, President Trump wants to acquire the island of Greenland from the Kingdom of...
So today the air traffic controllers are being paid.
Joining us now is Jack Chris, an
after the
air traffic control specialist.
So let's hear this. Let's see what MSN's take is on the air traffic controllers.
Is Jack Chris, an air traffic control specialist at Joint Base Andrews in Maryland, who has a new opinion piece for MS Now. The DHS shutdown is straining air traffic controllers like me. Jack, thanks so much for coming on to offer your insights and how you're looking at all of this. I know there's already so much stress for airport workers, and while the DHS funding isn't necessarily impacting your paycheck directly this time, talk to us about how it is impacting aviation more broadly.
And one thing's for certain is that I am very concerned about the people that are working right now and not getting paid, simply because we went through that a couple months ago, and we know exactly how it feels. We were a couple votes shy from going through it again. Luckily, we got lucky and it passed, but the TSA workers who are really on the front line of this shutdown every single day, providing a safety service to the public, ensuring our safety, and it seems like our elected officials are incapable of aiding in this situation. The left versus the right, is hard to differentiate who's doing what. It's so complex for the layman or the everyday individual trying to figure out.
I mean, in the end of the day, This is another miscalculation on the part of Hakeem Jeffries and of Chuck Schumer, right? They understand that the Republicans are trying to rebrand themselves as the party of the workers. So they could have easily, in my opinion, they could easily use this as an advantage, but they know how unpopular shutdowns are. But my issue is that Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries could have shut down the government a long time ago, right? In the beginning of Trump's presidency, when Trump was doging all the government agencies and was doing all of this stuff. Remember Doge? He was doging all the government agencies and going after, doing cuts, laying people off, firing workers, federal workers. He could have easily, the Democrats could have easily kept the shutdown going as long as it takes to make sure there was checks and balances on what Trump was doing. The big beautiful bill, or big ugly bill like I like to call it, would have never passed. If the big ugly bill would have never passed, then we wouldn't have these aggravating circumstances. If they would have put their foot down, then many of these incidents with ice in the streets would probably never have happened. That's the problem with playing both sides, and they're doing it again. They're playing both sides again because they feel like both sides the safe, moderate thing to do, right? The responsible thing to do, to be at the center, to not really take a side, but just be at the center of all the point of views. And if they stay in the middle, they will be able to win, right? And so the Democrats should have shut down the government for longer. They should have not budged for longer. And they should have had a full government shutdown instead of just a partial government shutdown that only TSA workers would have not been paid. They could have had the whole government not being paid, every single government worker, including congressional people, which they could agree if they, then it would have been all congressional people are getting paid and every single government worker is not being paid. They were worried about the economy, or it's going to cause damage to the economy, and then Donald Trump is going to be able to do whatever he wants. And guess what? Donald Trump has been doing whatever he wants anyway. It was a huge miscalculation on the part of Schumer and Jeffries. And the first time around with the first government shutdown under this new Trump administration, they could have shown that they were about business and that they weren't going to be pushed around. Once they did that and allowed the government to reopen, they showed Trump weakness, and they showed the Republicans that they could do whatever they want with the Democrats, and the Democrats would not resist. And guess what happened with that situation? Schumer said he was going to shut down the government, and then he got a phone call from one of the mega donors that is not only a donor for Trump, but it's also a donor to the Republican Party, one of the main donors to the Republican Party, and told Schumer to stop and to open up the government and because it was going to hurt the economy. And guess what Schumer did? He flip-flopped and he switched his position and he changed his position. So when people tell me it's not Schumer, it's not Jeffries, I don't agree at all. We should definitely see that it's the Democrats and the Republicans. But the Democrats need to move more left and be more resistant and show the resistance, not just on paper, not just on lip service, but actions, because actions speak louder than words. Every single time, actions speak louder than words. And so right now what they're doing is just playing chicken. They're just playing chicken. And that's why Democrats are shedding voters and most people are moving to third parties. And there's a chance that the governor of the state of New York might lose. It's possible that the governor of the state of New York might lose because she's very unpopular. And even if Zohran Mamdani endorses her, there's a chance that she might lose because there's a resentment towards the Democratic establishment. There's a resentment towards corporate Democrats that keep taking the corporate money and making decisions based on corporate interests and big money interests above the interests of the people. So no matter what Republicans do, their base is going to support them because their whole goal is just to destroy Democrats. As long as Democrats are destroying each other and attacking each other, they're happy. That's all they want. That's their main goal. So will they oppose the war? I don't know. If Democrats can't even oppose it, do you expect Republicans on the other side of the spectrum to oppose it? If Democrats don't stand up for universal health care, are Republicans going to even meet us halfway? No. Because we have a weakened bargaining position, and they know that. They know that. We could scream to the top of our lungs, we could protest to the top of the lungs, and we could have 100 hands-off protests or 100 no kings protests, and they know in the end of the day, the Democrats are going to side with corporations unless we get a new wave of challengers and a new wave of hard anti-corporate progressive candidates that don't take no corporate money and are not willing to give up on their morals or their stances or their point of views, no matter how hard they push them, right? And that's why they're worried about people like Hassan Piker and his influence with the left and with young people, right? That's why they worry about him, and they worry about people like me that are independents, that are fed up with Democrats. Even in the blue state, I'm in a blue state where Democrats should be passing progressive things. They should be doing everything possible to help pass universal health care. They still oppose universal health care. They always find an excuse not to pass it in New York at the state level. Governor Kathy Hochul is siding with the no tax on tips, which would pretty much cut a lot of the state funding or state taxes. So, I mean, people see the hypocrisy of the Democratic Party. They see the hypocrisy of the Republican Party. They see the hypocrisy of both sides of both parties. And that's just a reality. And I appreciate you all for joining me in the live stream. I'm going to be ending it now. Thank you for being strong. Thank you for listening to my perspective and my point of view. And hopefully we could do change and enact change at all levels of government. All levels of government. Even at the lowest and smallest levels to the highest levels. With your help and with your strength. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day. And I'll see you tomorrow for another broadcast. Hit the subscribe button on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, X, Instagram, and Substack. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm Celso Garcia, signing off. Peace be with you always. Take care.